we all watch the news, we are all seeing images of people suffering from the coronavirus or trying to get from getting the coronavirus. We are all having moments where we feel anxiety about, will we be next? Will it come to America? That's exactly what it feels like when you have hydrocephalus. You're always wondering, when will the bomb drop? When will you have to have another brain surgery? Let me explain. When I was 9 years old, my family moved to Bonn, West Germany for my dad's position at the US Embassy. I had had a completely normal life up until then. I was active, I was social, and I was somewhat academic. Sure, I made C's, so I was a lot more social than academic. But then everything changed. All of a sudden I developed these crazy painful headaches that started at the top of my head and worked down the base of my skull. And it would actually feel like somebody was trying to squeeze my brain out of the back. And it was extremely painful. The only thing I could do was sleep. And I didn't sleep for hours, I slept for days. I lost my balance, I lost my friends, I lost my dignity, because I ended up being in a situation where I was throwing up everywhere and anywhere daily, which in 4th grade makes for some pretty mean nicknames. It was obvious to my parents that something was wrong, and they kept taking me to the embassy doctor, and he kept saying, it's just migraines. Well, my parents knew obviously that was something bigger, so they would drive me 2 hours away to the nearest American facility. And at that American facility, they ran test after test for months. And finally, they asked a visiting neurosurgeon, Dr. Howe, to take a quick look at me. And so he did. And it took 15 minutes and 3 tests for him to correctly diagnose me. At first, he said, take out your dominant hand, Kim, and all I want you to do is rotate each finger to your thumb and then back again. I could do 3 fingers and then nothing else. And he said, that's okay. Let's just try to walk a straight line, heel to toe, across the room, and then back again. I could go a couple of feet, and then I fell over to my side, literally. So he said, all right, Kim, all I'm gonna do is this last test is just shine a bright light into each of your eyes. He started with my left eye, and then he went to my right eye, and then he turned to my parents and he said, Kim needs to be at Longstool Hospital on Monday morning at 7:30 a.m. for brain surgery. She has a condition called hydrocephalus. Hydro what? Exactly. Nobody knows about it until it shows up on your doorstep. And we were no different. We had no clue. So, according to the Hydrocephalus Association, it's actually common. 1 million people here in the United States have hydrocephalus. It's as common as Down syndrome. And it's actually more common than spina bifida or brain tumors, yet nobody talks about it. 1 in 770 babies is born with hydrocephalus, but it isn't genetic. The most common way people acquire hydrocephalus is something that could happen to any one of us, and that's through trauma, through a car accident, or through a big jolt like in football, ice hockey, or soccer. When our brain gets jolted in that violent motion, it can cause hydrocephalus. We desperately need to talk about hydrocephalus and find a real solution other than brain surgery. Now, my dad told me later that even though I was in bad shape, it was a hard sell to suddenly hear your kid has to have brain surgery. So Dr. House said, let me take you down the hall to the children's ward. So they went down to the children's ward, and in that room he saw a bunch of kids. They all had bald heads. They all were playing, and they had all had the surgery that they were suggesting for me, which was for hydrocephalus. When you get a surgery for hydrocephalus, you get a shunt inserted that you see here. And this, you guys have a natural vein that does this. I have a man-made product, and it's actually ironically called a Denver shunt, and I had it put in when I lived in Germany. It is, your vein takes your cerebral spinal fluid from your brain to your abdomen, and it just so happens this is one of those bodily functions that if you don't have it, you die. And so obviously we were going to make sure we made that appointment. So the next Monday, we made sure to be at that appointment at 7:30 a.m. And I went into brain surgery. My parents waited in the waiting room, and then afterwards, Dr. Howe came out, and he said, all went well, Kim is doing well, We were lucky. Her hydrocephalus was so bad, she only had 48 hours to live. So this shunt, and this is literally my shunt, I asked for it when I had to have my second brain surgery, because it stayed with me for so long. It literally saved my life. Hydrocephalus patients are essentially drowning inside their own head from cerebral spinal fluid in their brain, and nobody's doing anything about it unless you pay attention. Luckily, my parents paid attention the first time. My husband and my daughter caught it the second time. Each year, more than 400,000 cases of hydrocephalus are identified. Yet we're still using the technology that was developed in the 1970s. And the problem with this little guy is that it doesn't last forever. Shunts will have to be changed if you grow too much. Obviously, I didn't, right? I think I'm like 3 inches taller than I was in 4th grade. So that's one reason it would have to be changed. The other reason it would have to be changed is if it malfunctions or gets an infection. So at the hydrocephalus conference a couple of years ago, I met this young lady who is only 29, and Jennifer's already had 110 brain surgeries. Now, this is an extreme case, but what isn't extreme is most people have to have a dozen or half a dozen at minimum in their lifetime. I've already had 3. So brain surgery, not only is it painful, but it's also expensive. The last time I had brain surgery, it cost $150,000. So it's when you have hydrocephalus, it is kind of like you feel like you're sinking again, right? You feel like your brain is starting to flood up again, and you can see things happening around you, but you can't do anything about it, right? So like in 4th grade, I could remember kids talking about me in a negative way, but I couldn't respond. And so that's why it feels like you're actually drowning, because things just start to sort of fade away. Like the people with the coronavirus, when you have hydrocephalus, you have to always have a little bit of anxiety about, are they going to come up with a solution that won't require brain surgery? Or are you going to have yet another one? For example, every time I get a headache, I have to ask myself, is this a normal headache or is this a hydrocephalus headache? Because they feel slightly different. Every time I come home and I sleep a ton because I'm exhausted or something like that, my husband will ask all these questions to try to determine if once again I'm slipping into sort of that hydrocephalus state. So when mine quit after 37 years and my husband had to rush me to the emergency room, it was quite the shock to find out that with the problem that's been so common, it still hasn't been fixed. Brain surgery is still the only solution. In fact, it's gotten more expensive. It cost $150,000 to have that brain surgery when I had it just 2 years ago. I also learned at that time that now there's a second type of hydrocephalus. It's called normal pressure hydrocephalus. And it's impacting people that we should all care about. Shouldn't we always protect those who've protected us? It's impacting our elderly. And when I say elderly, it's not really elderly. 60 is not old. I'm sure your mom, right? Or your grandparents are 60 plus, right? And right now the estimate is that 700,000 people are living with normal pressure hydrocephalus. Just today, when I was doing this speech earlier, a student stayed after class and told me that their grandmother died of hydrocephalus, normal pressure hydrocephalus, last year because it got misdiagnosed. It's a huge problem. The other group of people that are being affected by normal pressure hydrocephalus are veterans. Because of the jolts that happen with TBIs, they are suffering with hydrocephalus as well, normal pressure hydrocephalus. It's estimated that 180,000 veterans have normal pressure hydrocephalus. So this isn't a Debbie Downer, because the cool thing about this is that in 2018, something huge happened. And in 2018, Dr. Bonnie Blazer-Yost developed a pill that we could use in mild cases of hydrocephalus like mine. And we no longer have to have brain surgery if we can get this on the market. Now, going back to the coronavirus, last week on the news, it said that the only, once they find a solution or a remedy for the coronavirus, it'll take a year and a half for that vaccine to get on the market. A year and a half. I'm on year 3 of a 7-year journey. This shunt is only guaranteed for 7 years. So I desperately want to get the message out so that these new solutions can get the funding they need in order to be able to get on the market. So what I'm asking of all of you is to consider sharing this message on YouTube so that we can get the funds and raise the awareness we need to get products like this pill that was developed by Dr. Bonnie Blazer Yost on the market. Will you help me stop the clock and throw out a life vest for the victims of hydrocephalus? Or will you wait until someone you know is drowning? The choice is yours. Please consider sharing this message on YouTube. Thank you.